There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
All righty, welcome aboard. It is time for the Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report with the one and only Ira Winderman. There we go. He's got his glasses off now. You're ready to rock. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good. Got the reading glasses off, so I can still try to skew as young as I can at this point, Big O.
I got you, my brother, every single day. I live with the same monster, my friend. I live with the same monster. All right, let's get into a little basketball talk.
Sure.
When we look at this Heat team, Yurtseven, is his future in the G League or is his future as a rotational player? Or is it all still up for grabs because of the preseason? I don't know.
Omar Yurtseven's situation is interesting from this standpoint. A lot of people have asked me, well, are they going to send him to the G League, to Sioux Falls for seasoning? The problem always, there's not a lot of true centers in the G League. So you could be the 7-foot guy there who dunks on everyone. We saw that in the Summer League game against Golden State, against shorter players. And it means nothing. It doesn't translate. So other people might go, but wait a minute. He's not going to get playing time. You have Bam Adebayo, Dwayne Dedmon, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris. I get all that. But like I've said before, I still would rather see him banging in practice and in shoot-arounds with the Heat players and learning from them than going against some neophytes in the G League. Look, if this guy wasn't a 4-year college player, didn't play at North Carolina State, didn't play at Georgetown, didn't play with the Turkish national team, didn't play Summer League with the Heat, then I totally agree with the thought the kid needs seasoning, needs playing time. The one thing we know, you know it, I know it, the Heat practice a lot, and they practice hard, and they practice for real. So it's not like he's going to be on one of these teams where they're canceling practice every other day, and he's not going to get his reps. He'll get his reps down here, and he'll get his reps in front of Alonzo Mourning, and he'll get his reps sometimes in front of Chris Bosh, and he'll get his reps in front of Udonis Haslem, who will stay as long as it takes after practice and in pregame warmups for the kid to get his chance. So you know what? I want to see him because probably, if we were doing these two-man breakdowns of groups of players together, I am so curious about Bam Adebayo and Omar Yurtseven playing together, getting the stretch 5 out there with Yurtseven. He was hitting the threes during Summer League and maybe getting a little bit different look. And again, as much as we live in the moment with the Heat, we both respect that they live in the moment. There is a future. No offense to him, Dwayne Dedmon's not the future. No offense to him, PJ Tucker is not the future. He's on a 1-year deal. He's 35 years old, maybe looking for another payday somewhere else.
And he's a specialist anyways.
Right. So he's, sort of one-trick pony there. So I think what they're going to try to do is develop him during practices, away from the game a little, and maybe find some spot minutes also for him during the season. Maybe Dedmon's injured. Maybe Bam misses a game or two. Really more intriguing, I think, than really, I'm not sure how we call a Summer League prospect, with all due respect to what Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn did in their first Summer League, that this kid just has something unique he can add to the mix potentially right away.
Yeah, and we've had this subject and we've talked about how Spo never plays two big men together because he needs two guys that can actually shoot to play off of each other. He'd be more comfortable. This is actually our one hope, that if Yurtseven actually grows up enough and they trust him, they'll easily put him out there with Bam because he can actually shoot and stretch.
And the thing is also, he's been with the Heat since the final week of the regular season. So this is not a player who's new to Eric Spoelstra. This is not Eric Spoelstra returning to the gym in September and saying, who is this kid? Fill me in on him. He's seen him. He was with the Heat during the playoff series against Milwaukee. He was at the Heat's gym in July. They've gotten this nice running start. You remember this, when they signed Kendrick Nunn the final game of the season. It was the day that Dwayne Wade was playing his retirement game in Brooklyn. They give themselves the running start. A lot of times after the Dolphin season, you'll see this in January, they'll start signing guys for the following season. You want to get as long a runway as you can with players, especially unique players. So again, it's really interesting, though. We lament so many times over the years that the Heat don't have a draft choice, that they don't have their first-round pick. My God, what are they going to do? I'm not so sure if you were to talk to the teams who drafted in the 20s this year and say you could either keep the pick that you took in 20, 25, 29, or you could have Omar Yurtseven. I'm not so sure that half those teams wouldn't go, we'll go to door number 2 instead, and we'll take him instead. So it's just remarkable how the Heat find these players. The opposite side of that is because they find so many of them sometimes they get poached by other teams, like we're seeing right now with DeJon Jarreau probably going to Indiana on a 2-way deal.
All right. And is it when you look at Yurtseven, his demands, like, I mean, is this can the coach count on him now at this point? Is there that kind of respect for him when you look at his play right now? Because obviously if they're willing to put him on their roster, they must feel really good about him. And there must be, like you just said, other people trying to pick. How popular is this guy around the league?
Well, I think he really opened eyes in the Sacramento Summer League, some of the other stuff he did in Vegas. You always look in Summer League to what translates. So the guy can go off and get a big number of points. You have to look at who he's playing against, how he's doing it. And there was enough variety in the menu there from Omar Yurtseven that you could say, okay, this is NBA ready. This isn't NBA ready, but we can work on that also. And don't kid yourself. You know, it's just like the rookie cornerback out there on an island. He will get picked on. They will be players, there will be the Joel Embiids will go at him like fresh meat. But you have to learn that also. At a certain point, you have to get beaten up like Chris Bosh was by Kevin Garnett. You learn about that, you toughen up, and you come back for a little bit more. Really interesting. I'm really curious. Usually I would tell you, oh, hey, this guy's a second-round pick. This guy's a summer league guy. Let's sort of push him down the pecking order. I think this is a little bit different what they did, and we saw enough in summer league that it's really intriguing to the point I almost wonder if they knew what they had in this, whether they would have kept that roster spot for Dwayne Dedmon. So it's going to be a little bit interesting also.
How much will they have to pace this team because of the age? Because I'm wondering, LA and Miami, the two oldest teams, or at least that's what it seems. I know LA is the oldest. I think Miami is second, correct? Or
they should. When they do at the end of camp and they have the final rosters, they'll probably be in the top 5 oldest teams. It skews a little the other way because of some of the younger players on the roster, but they are right up there with the Lakers, especially when you're talking about rotation players. There's 2 factors here in play in that. I haven't spoken to you since the last time when the Heat came out with their schedule last week. Oh, it's interesting. 13 of the first 20 are on the road, but 13 of the final 18 are at home. So if they can survive the early part of the season, they'll know whether they can pace themselves. They'll know whether they built enough of a gap. But the one thing that hasn't changed, and this changes everything about the NBA regular season, and that's the play-in tournament. Because, I remember that final week of the season against Boston when they had to win both of those games to avoid the play-in, 2 of their better games of the season. They did. You can only pace so much. It used to be, you get a top 8 seed. Don't worry, maybe Brooklyn has injuries. Maybe Philly's overrated. You'll be okay. When you're playing for a top 6 seed, you're probably going to have to win 47, 48 games like the Heat's projected win total. So I don't think there is any coasting. You better have reliable depth. And that's where we're going to see the questions with this Heat team this year. If you're opening, say, with a lineup, Bam Adebayo, PJ Tucker, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, and Kyle Lowry, do you have enough off the bench there in Tyler Hero, in Dwayne Dedmon, in Max Strus, in Markieff Morris? That's where it gets a little bit questionable with this limited roster because you're not playing UD, because KZ Okpala is unplayable, because Victor Oladipo is out injured. The depth will be a factor. And the one thing that unfortunately hasn't changed is COVID is still around. And you could have players going on the COVID list. You're seeing it with the Dolphins now. You're seeing it around the NFL. We all thought that part had passed. It didn't. The NFL, I think it's what is it? This year, like a 16-player practice squad. They're loading up. They're giving them so many more options. That's not the case in the NBA. So at a time when you might need more players, the Heat is starting with 14 and might get caught in that trap again. So I think the COVID impact cannot be minimized yet, which is very unfortunate also.
I'm glad you asked me. You mentioned that because that leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Because of the way I asked you of pacing, what I wanted to follow up with is because you've mentioned what they're doing on the back end of that roster, that they're kind of limiting what they could have. So in the G League, are they going to try to have a player or two that can easily transfer over just in case for injury purposes that might be able to help them out in a pinch for a week or two? Or is that something that's impossible to actually do in this league with the G League and the NBA team?
Well, that's interesting. If a player's not under contract to you and you send him over for seasoning, you have to sign him. He can't afford to do that. They don't have a roster spot, but they have two-way contracts. And so this week, we're starting to see a little bit of maybe the thought process. DeJon Jarreau, the guard from Houston, had a terrific summer league with the Heat, but they didn't jump right away to sign him. And apparently Indiana now poached him, and he's going to be with the Pacers. That's one name down. Marcus Garrett, another undrafted player out of Kansas, terrific defender, I believe will sign with the Heat by the end of this week, whether it's an Exhibit 10 contract, tryout, or a two-way. Here's the thing. Your two-way contracts can play up to 50 games. Last season during COVID, that mattered. Max Strus played a lot. Gabe Vincent played a lot. If you can play 50 of the 82 games, I'm almost wondering, are the Heat looking at their two-way contracts as we want guys more polished? Development is fine during typical times. These aren't typical times. Just like the Dolphins with their extended practice squad have to have guys at a moment's notice who can come in and step in. I'm not so sure that the Heat aren't looking at their two-way guys and saying, you know what? Usually we don't go in this direction. We don't get more of an NBA type of player. But this might be the year where that's a little bit different, where they go for more of a veteran type two-way guy, because Spoelstra might realize he's starting with 14. Udonis doesn't play. Okpala can't play. Oladipo won't play for the first half of the season. When you're already down to 11 and you get a three-man COVID cluster or something, you're going to need your two ways. I'm very curious to see how the Heat handle their two-way contracts.
Ira, why isn't KZ just all year in the G League? I mean, if he's useless and you can't play him, no, I'm serious. I mean, well, what's the rule and why you can't move him to the G League? So at least
you can.
You can, so then let him play every night there in the G League and get better. At least, hopefully, he gets better that way.
But to what end? And here's the problem. The Heat 3 years ago gave up 3 second-round picks for KZ Okpala. They paid him guaranteed for 3 years. That's unusual for a second-round pick. First year, he was injured. He missed time, some G League, no contribution. Second year, COVID, not a full G League schedule. He wasn't able to contribute, nor was he in the bubble when he had an ailment again. So all of a sudden, if you're saying, let's take this entire year to develop KZ Okpala, for what? If he's not going to be around after the third year, if you're not going to double down on your bet, you know what it's like, when someone says double or nothing to you, you have to decide at some point you got to hold. You got to say, okay, enough. I'm going to fold rather and fold your cards. So I think the thing is they might as well just see what NBA possibilities he might or might not have now, because if they do develop him in the G League and he does become somewhat of a prospect and he does go to Summer League next summer and impress, he is as much a part of any other team as he is of the Heat. They gave him a 3-year runway, and he still has yet to take off from that runway in the first 2 years. So now you might as well just hold him around. You got some injuries. We'll take a flyer. You know Spo, he doesn't take a guy from the rotation, move him up one spot. He likes to leave things in order. So maybe when there's a game when PJ Tucker can't play, all of a sudden you're starting KZ Okpala instead of Markieff Morris just to keep the rotation in order. But that's a tough spot for the Heat. And honestly, after 2 years of investment, the return has been a lot less than any of the cryptocurrency you're holding right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cryptocurrency is doing well right now, buddy.
Exactly.
I wish KZ Okpala was Cardano right now, exploding. That would have been really, really good. All right, the point guard position. I know it's something that we've been concerned about. I'm talking about the backup point guard position. Who is Miami going to rely on to create plays when Lowry needs to rest? And God forbid if he suffers a bumper bruise along the way, which is normal in an 82-game schedule when you've got to miss some time. Is it going to be a committee type thing that can create for each other, or they settle on somebody they can count on?
Well, I like how you phrased that when you said, who are they going to rely on? Because you took me off the spot. because then they're going to rely on the playmaking of Jimmy Butler, like they did the past 2 seasons, the playmaking of Bam Adebayo, like they have these past 2 seasons also, and then just they'll slot a player in as the quote-unquote point guard, and probably will be Gabe Vincent in the short term. But they have to figure that out. And the whole point of Kyle Lowry was to take that off the plate for Jimmy Butler, that he doesn't have to advance the ball against pressure, to take it off the plate for Bam Adebayo, so you know what? He can look at the rim as much as he's looking for the next pass in the offense. So that's the problem, is they don't have that point guard. Look, I have been effusive about this. Even when it came to the UD signing, I've said, bring in a Jeff Teague, bring in a guy who knows how to do it, put him in the deep freeze, get that understanding with him. You might not play at all, and hopefully, we hope we don't have to play you at all, but at least you could be on call. Now I think they're in a tough spot. Maybe this is Gabe Vincent's time. Maybe it comes around. Maybe they're developing the future. But if they're not doing and developing that future, then all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, Kyle Lowry, a hamstring, 5, 6, 7 games. Where are you? Oh, I think that is going to be one of the issues going into camp.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the age, you got to figure something's going to happen. It's not that I want it to happen. It's just with the age and the wear and tear, the poor man's he's gonna need a break or two. Plus, in a way, if you're the team, you kind of want to give him a little bit of a break during the season, because they're older players and they're going to need see, that's the thing. When I start thinking about, you've mentioned it so many times and you nailed it, because they're so limited on the back end, I just worry about how tired they're going to be by the end of the season, because they don't have enough people on the bench to give some of these guys quality rest and stretches where maybe others could carry a little bit of the weight.
And I think that's why their preseason is going to count. A lot of teams are down to 4 preseason games. You know the Heat, they can never get enough. They're playing 6 exhibitions, 3 home and 3 on the road. I think Gabe Vincent's minutes will be Jacoby Brissett-like during the preseason. I think they will throw everything at him and see what they have. And then you could say, hey, you know what? At the end of 6 games, some good competition, including 2 against the Hawks, they'll have a better read of whether he can or can't. Hey, maybe this turns up perfectly. We've seen it with some of the Dolphins players. We had questions on, and 2 exhibitions in, all of a sudden you're feeling good about some of the prospects. So I think the preseason is going to be really important for Gabe Vincent. Maybe that's why they held him out of Summer League. He played with the Nigeria national team in the Olympics. Get your rest, but be ready, because your season is going to start 2 weeks before the regular season for the other guys. Show it to us. We've carried you now for 2 seasons. You know the Heat system. You know what we want to do. You've shown the defense. Now play make. Now show it to us. And you know what? The Heat does find these players. They do develop them. Logically, Max Strus will mean more because he has a definitive NBA skill in his shooting, and they need it. But Gabe Vincent has an opportunity like he's never had in front of him before.
Strus, to me, looks like the kind of guy that they're going to be able to count on as a shooter, is what I'm saying. Off the bench.
I think when Duncan Robinson is out of the game, I think Max Strus is in. That's today's NBA. You always have to have a 3-point shooter. There have been years that Eric Spoelstra said, nope, not if you're one-dimensional, James Jones. Sorry, we'll use you maybe when we have to. Nope, Jason Capono, this is not going to work long-term. You can't defend. I think because the Heat have groomed these players, because Duncan Robinson has been around so long and he has grown as a defensive player, and now Max Strus took the time to play Summer League after playing 2 years on a 2-way contract. He knows the system a little more. A lot of people, when they're doing their Heat rotations, do not have Max Strus as a top 8 player. I think he will be, because I think they want to keep that shooting on the floor at all times. They don't want to be 29th in the NBA in 3-point shooting again.
Ira, what are you working on in the South Florida Sun Sentinel so Heat fans can check you out, my brother?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to lock down these 2-way contracts. I'm trying to figure out if the Heat's going to wait till camp, what's going to happen definitively with DeJon Jarreau. He's not yet on the Indiana Pacers roster, so sort of looking into that a little bit also. There also was a story the other day. C.J. McCollum came out and said he thought the Heat did dirty to Kendrick Nunn by withdrawing his qualifying offer after all the money dried up in free agency. So little bit of controversy there I'm looking into also. As usual, there's always some NBA stuff. And tomorrow for an hour, we'll load you up. Myself, Clay Ferraro. We're on the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint show. So looking forward to that. And then coming back with you, of course, here on Friday for another round of the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat report.
I got to follow up on that, because you've kind of felt that they didn't give Kendrick Nunn enough of an opportunity. And And I think sometimes he has had enough of an opportunity. He kind of proved to us that he's incredibly inconsistent. Why would I fault the Heat in protecting themselves? I understand the player would be pissed because another player may have gotten screwed with all of this, but that's part of the game. Kendrick Nunn could have gone out and kicked ass and made himself so valuable that they didn't want to let him go. But this is what happens.
And even more, part of the game is these are the collective bargaining rules set in place. CJ McCollum is taking over now for Chris Paul for head of the National Basketball Players Association. He knows the rules. What a lot of people didn't realize is this. If the Heat left the qualifying offer for Kendrick Nunn and he took it, he would have had a no-trade implicit clause on a one-year deal with bird rights, which meant if the Heat wanted to aggregate salaries or something at any point during the season, Kendrick could have said, nope, I'm going to void that trade. So they had to play by the rules also. There's all these intricacies I mostly try to stay away from with the CBA, but that was one of them at play there, is that Kendrick Nunn, if he would have signed the Heat one-year qualifying offer, he would have had no trade rights this season also. The Heat have such a limited number of players they can move as it is, that I think that flexibility mattered as well.
Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. More importantly, catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. And make sure you subscribe and support our local journalists who do an excellent job of covering our news and sports and everything local going on. Ira, you are awesome, my friend. We will see you tomorrow for Inside the Paint for an hour from 10 to 11 with Clay Ferraro, my friend.
Not on Twitch, but you can find me anywhere else. Thank you, Big O.
There you go. Ira Winderman.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.